Welcome to Whiteboard discussion. I am your instructor, Dr. Mario Wallace. Today's lesson for this lecture is artificial bridges. But before I get into the actual topic of artificial bridges, let me land you on the foundation of it. And it begins with this guy named Dr. Damon Centola, a prolific professor at the University of Pennsylvania, who discovered in his research wide bridges. According to Dr. Damon Centola, wide bridges consist of strong ties within social networks, which consist of people in isolation, people in close proximity, and people who are distant from each other. These people, as it relates to wide bridges, can debate information, can discuss information with the intent to change human behavior. Wide bridges approach increases social reinforcement and social acceptance. The basis of wide bridges is the spread of information. The elements that consist of wide bridges are organic formation, meaning it is organically formed, it's not agenda driven. It has a historical context, and it has a limited practical application, which opposite of that is artificial bridges. So artificial bridges is an extension of Dr. Damon Centola's methodology or research, in which it's agenda driven. And what does that mean? Wide bridge was based on research in which Dr. Damon Centola looked at several movements, such as the Civil Rights Movement, the Arab Springs movement, and the Black Lives Matter movement, to better understand how did those movements take place and what was the accelerator that created the spread or the diffusion of information within a lot of social clusters, within a lot of communities, that led to the downfall of the Egyptian government, led to the changes in America as it relates to the Civil Rights Movement, and led to the changes in America as it relates to the Black Lives Matter movement. Well, artificial bridges, on the other hand, has a controlled design, meaning it's agenda driven. It has a more strategic implementation. It supports wide bridges in all its elements and in its design. However, it's agenda driven. There is a purpose behind it. It's not an organically forming movement that creates behavior change in humans. It is intentional, meaning it is driven by leadership to create the outcome. The implementation consists of connecting people within an organization with the intent to change human behavior. One of the core elements of artificial bridges come from Dr. Malaz Bustani, Dr. Jose Azar, and Dr. Eric Holden, who are all from IU Health. They came up with a concept called Agile implementation. So within the framework, there is a concept or a term named Agile mindset or the Agile mindset. And this particular term consists of three elements. There is a fourth element, but I'll explain. The first one is psychological safety. In order for this methodology to work, artificial bridges to work, leaders who implement it must understand how to foster a psychologically safe environment. They also must know how to give timely feedback to the people who on their team who they are working with to create this new behavior change in an organization. And thirdly, they must know how to run these iterative sprints to test concepts within how a change is implemented within the organization, and to take those solutions and turn them into a standard of operating procedure and replicate that accordingly. But there is an additional element that doesn't fall within, that's a part of Agile implementation, but it's not one of the elements of the Agile mindset, and that is storytelling. In order to be a great change practitioner or someone who's creating solutions in organizations, you must know how to create stories that creates demand within the organization to work on these projects. So since I've explained to you what artificial bridges is and what wide bridges is, let's have a real discussion. So I want to start with the left side of the whiteboard and work my way to the right side. The first thing we want to talk about is complex adaptive human network. So within an organization, we have moving parts. We have people, we have processes, we have systems. Whenever a new change initiative or a new strategy or something that's introduced to the organization, it creates resistance within the organization. And what we've used over the past 30 years is 8-step change methodology from John Kotter, which was enhanced in later years by an organization that most people use today is ProSci change management. ProSci change management basically took Kotter's methodology and additional research that they did themselves, and they've made his methodology practical. I am a certified ProSci change management practitioner myself, so I'm very familiar with it. But let me explain how it works. So Kotter's method and ProSci method they are both top-down methods, meaning information comes from the top of the organization as it relates to a new change or a new demand in an organization. It works its way down to the people, right? So let me explain for a second. Here, this is called network of adaptive agents. People in an organization are considered adaptive agents. The reason being is that people have conditional interactions with people within an organization. It's not more of a structure, it's conditional. People choose who they want to interact with within an organization. This particular network of adaptive agents get information from people at the top, and that information is communicated down in a more hierarchical fashion, which what I call waterfall and top-down leadership. Let me step back for a second. This model that I have on the screen on the whiteboard here comes from Dr. Malas-Bustani. So, a complex adaptive human network consists of 3 theoretical concepts. One is complex adaptive theory. Complex adaptive theory looks at multiple things. One is when change happens in an organization, people begin to self-organize, meaning that they go and find who is quite familiar with the new changes to learn from them. And the person who they self-organize and gather with may not be their direct supervisor or a director of a business unit. It may just be a peer. So we have to understand that. And that is called self-organizing. The second step is they start looking for conditional relationships. So that's when conditional interactions take place. But within the complexity of self-organizing, they organize in what we call a cluster. And that is considered more like a community. And I'm gonna circle one here and talk about it more in detail. People begin to self-organize towards the center of gravity. Someone who has more information about the change that's taking place in the organization. What you see here, these dots are people. We call them nodes. In the center of the dots, we call the person who has all the information that people are looking for, is considered the hub. So people begin to self-organize in a network around the hub. And the people within the hub either are connected through a straight line or they're connected through some type of dotted line, which is a bridge. So these are nodes. This is a hub. This is a connective line, and this is a bridge that's connecting this cluster of people to this cluster of people. So what we have on this actual board are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 cluster of people or 6 communities that self-organize based on conditional relationships. Complex adaptive theory means that the organization is very complex. An organization consists of several different departments and divisions within departments that makes it very, very complex, such as a health system or a large fulfillment system or a large manufacturing plant or manufacturing system. There are a lot of different moving parts, which makes it complex. They conditionally interact. Emergence happens based on problem solving, trying to figure out how to deal with the new change. And through problem solving, new innovative things come out of the group if there is a psychologically safe environment. The second theory is network science. Organizations consist of a lot of people within a network. And what we have to do as network scientists is understand how information is shared within the organization and where those conditional interactions live at. Through network science, such as studying the network using what I call a social network mapping activity or assessment, you can actually assess people within the organization by asking them simple questions related to who do you get your information from, who do you trust most in an organization, and why. It would tell you exactly who people work with or who people trust. Whenever there is a change implemented, they will actually go to the people they trust within the organization in order to figure out how to mitigate the change that's taking place within the organization. And the third type of theory is behavior economics or choice architect. Let me repeat that again: behavior economics or choice architect. It's the same thing. And within behavior economics, it's one of the main elements of it is called a nudge. And a nudge is a concept that a strategy that's developed to get people to do things without taking away their choice, right? It's not more of a dictatorship type concept or dictating what takes place within the organization. You create situations that people unconsciously realize is taking place, but it doesn't take away their choice. They have a choice to do it, such as if a software is pushed out through Apple or Verizon to be downloaded on your phone, on your cell phone, you have a choice to accept that download or not. So a nudge does not take away your choice. So those are the three type of theories that exist within this methodology. You must understand those concepts if you are to be a change practitioner today. And the three are complex adaptive theory, network science theory, and behavior economics theory. So let me explain the model. So as you can see here, most organizations have top-down hierarchical leadership concepts. Information comes from the C-suite and is pushed down to the people. This method is considered a waterfall top-down method. It's a very slow, methodical method to communicate information. Information comes from the top down into the people that does the work on the front line. Based on how they're receiving information, the information then goes up back to the C-suite. It takes time to get there, to travel. The people at the bottom are frustrated based on the new changes, and maybe the manager or the director is not communicating the why effectively, which creates a slower methodical, or it creates high resistance of the information that's being communicated. In order to speed it up, we have to mobilize the network. And we can mobilize the network by understanding the science of the network using social network mapping assessments to understand who conditionally interacts with each other and where have the people self-organized based on a new change to be able to diffuse or spread information through the network. This whole concept of complex adaptive human network, the three theories associated with it, also come from Elaz Bustani, Eric Holden, and Jose Azar. But the thing is, how do we accelerate information, and how do we diffuse or spread information through the actual network? That leads us to communication styles: a firework communication style and a fishing net communication style, or pattern, according to Damon Centola. I'm still communicating a higher diffusion concept of David Centola's methodology that would get us eventually to artificial bridges. So what is this? So according to Damon Centola, there's two ways of diffusing information or spreading information within an organization. And these concepts came out of his research. One is the firework communication pattern. What happens is a central source communicates information out, and the information goes out to people. Remember, I said these are nodes, these are people, and this is the hub. This is the center who people gathers around for information. This person, such as the director of communication, sends communication out based on a new change initiative within the organization. So information is communicated either as fireworks or a fishing net. The fireworks pattern communicates information from a source and it goes out to people like a firework. If change is expected within an organization, if it's a change initiative and we're trying to get people to buy into the change, or we're trying to change behavior of the people to accept the change, the fireworks pattern of communication would not be an effective way to do it. When information comes from the center, the hub, and it goes out to the people who are the nodes in an organization, let me write this. And it goes out to the people in the node. These people are not connected. There are no bridges that connect this person to that person, or this person to that person, or this person to that person. So the information is never being discussed and repeated. These individuals don't even know each other within their organization. They may be in different departments, but the information goes out in a fireworks pattern with the intent to communicate new information, not behavior change. So if you're trying to communicate new information, you're trying to inform that a leader resigned from the organization, or there's a new leader that came to the organization, or something about a event like a Christmas party or a social gathering event. This is the best way of communicating out. It comes from a single source, such as somebody in marketing and communications, and they communicate the information out to individuals with the intent to inform individuals within the organization. If you're seeking behavior change, you have to communicate the information in a fishing net pattern. If you're seeking behavior change in an organization, you need to communicate information within a fishing net pattern. Let me explain the difference between the two. In a fishing net pattern, information is communicated to the group. The group, as you can see here, is sealed off. There are connectivities and intersections throughout this particular model. If information goes to this person and he decides to share information to someone else, he can share the information to that person because they're connected. This person shares the information to this person, and this person may disagree, but the information would eventually circle back around to that person again through the principle of redundancy. And it happens the same way within each square of this particular fishing net model. The information is locked in, and according to Damon Santola's research, the repeating of information is what drives behavior change. Again, the repeating of information is what drives behavior change. So the information is consistently repeated. So these two people can debate the information. These two people can discuss the information. He can share the information with him, who debates it with him, and so forth. The repeating, the sharing, and the debating of information creates change in someone's mind. It changes someone's philosophy. It has the power to change someone's philosophy or someone's position on a topic. Thus, the fishing net pattern is the best mode of communication if you're trying to drive change in an organization. But how do you get there? That's when artificial bridges come in. So remember, why bridges is a concept of strong ties. You see strong ties. These people are connected with each other, right? Within a social network. Fireworks has a weak tie concept. Nobody is connected. Information goes out. Each individual has information. It informs them of something that's taking place in the organization. Where a fishing net or a wide bridge concept consists of strong ties and networks within an organization that consistently repeat information with the intent to create behavior change. Now, when you think of artificial bridges is a concept of network science and fishnet pattern and wide bridges, meaning there's a lot of bridges here, as you can see with these dotted lines. They're bridging information from one community to the next community, right? But they bridge that information in an organic fashion, meaning just imagine this is you within an organization and your name is Richard, and Richard knows John, or Richard knows Sarah within an organization. Those are relationships that was built over time, and they were fostered through organic means within an organization. Unlike artificial bridges does not seek to foster, to allow relationships to foster themselves. Artificial bridges seeks to determine the relationship that it wants in the organization as it relates to the change initiative to drive change and behavior change within the organization. So when it comes to artificial bridges, we tend to we conduct a social network assessment to determine what's taking place within the network, right? Who are conditionally interacting and who are self-organizing, and where the actual clusters in the communities are. That's the first thing we do. Second thing, we determine what is the agenda for the change initiative. What do we truly want to happen in the organization? And once we realize what that is, we build a change strategy based on artificial bridges and the concept of the agile mindset. And that consists of multiple things. The hubs within each of these particular clusters, we pull them out and we educate them on the agile mindset. We teach them psychological safety. We teach them how to get timely feedback to people within their clusters. And we teach them how to listen for information and test through iterative sprints. Test concepts that's workarounds as it relates to the change initiative, because the goal is to get people to buy into the change initiative. And if there are workarounds that have been discovered within these particular clusters, we want the leader, the hub of those clusters, to take those concepts and test those concepts. And if success happens within it, run it for 30 to 60 days. And if you see great success, then we will replicate it within the other communities or hubs within an organization. But to really drive the artificial bridges, we have to determine additional connections that we want to make to create this concept of the fishing net pattern. As you can see here, there's a lot of people who are not connected. This person conditionally interacts with this person, but he or she doesn't conditionally interact with anybody else. There is no straight line. So to create the artificial bridging effect, we need to determine where those connections need to be at. We need to create and reinforce connections within the network to create the fishing net model, right? So we, through an agenda, through change initiative and change agents who we assign to these particular clusters, and I missed that part, as we conduct the social network mapping and we determine the networks, the clusters in the communities, we determine the nodes and who they self-organize around, and we determine the actual communities. We then assign a change agent to all those particular communities. And those change agents gather together and pull the people out and train them together and help them understand the agile mindset as it relates to psychological safety, timely feedback, and iterative sprints, with the intent to create SOPs, standard operating processes, procedures. But in addition to that, we need to go in and intentionally connect bridges. And these bridges are called artificial bridges because they did not organically form. These bridges are created based on an agenda. We're creating artificial bridges. Remember, the concept of wide bridges is a construct that is organically formed. These people create these relationships within the workforce, which could take time. When it comes to a change initiative, most of the time, leaders don't have the time to create the change. So we have to create an agenda. Based on the agenda, the artificial bridging within the organization. We have to put people together who we think needs to be together to help foster the necessary behavior change within an organization. And thus, we have artificial bridging that looks like the fishing net pattern. I am Dr. Mario Wallace, and thank you for tuning in to the Whiteboard discussion, Artificial Bridges.